Rest here for a breath, where the noise fades and stories come alive. These are not just words, they're whispers of truth, calling to those who seek meaning in the quiet. If you feel pulled to tales that stir the spirit, you're home. Subscribe to dive deeper. Now let the story awaken. The desire for connection. We all seek connection. It's the thread that weaves through every human interaction, every relationship. Whether it's the bond we share with our closest friends, our romantic partners, or even our family, intimacy is a deep-rooted desire in all of us. But there's a subtle shift that can occur when this craving for connection turns into a need, a dependence that begins to define the relationship. This is the story of Claire, Jason, and Emma, a triangle of love, desire, and attachment. Claire and Jason, married for 6 years, seemed to have it all. They had the house, the routine, the love. But somewhere in the quiet spaces of their marriage, something was missing. Claire's emotional needs had always been tied to Jason's presence, his validation. Jason, though loving, found himself becoming overwhelmed by her constant need for reassurance, and in the process began to feel trapped. But it wasn't just Jason that Claire relied on. Her best friend, Emma, who had always been there as her confidant, now found herself caught in a web of emotional complexity. Emma, fiercely independent and always the free spirit, had harbored feelings for Jason for years, feelings she had never shared with Claire. Yet in the midst of this tension, something inside her began to shift. She saw Jason in a new light, and those old feelings of attraction resurfaced. The conflict, Claire, Jason, and Emma. It was subtle at first. Claire would sense an unspoken tension in the air when Emma was around. A lingering glance between her husband and her best friend would go unnoticed by Jason, but Claire couldn't shake the feeling that something was changing. Jason, to his credit, had never crossed the line with Emma, at least not in any physical way. But emotionally, there was a growing distance between him and Claire, a space that Emma seemed to fill effortlessly. The distance between Jason and Claire wasn't just emotional. It had begun to bleed into their physical intimacy as well. What once was spontaneous and joyful had become routine, mechanical. The more Claire tried to hold on to the idea of their perfect love, the further Jason pulled away. And with Emma, who had always been the picture of strength and independence, Claire felt an odd sense of competition. It wasn't just about love, it was about validation. Could she keep her husband? Could she maintain her place in his life while Emma seemed to slide in with ease? One evening, after a particularly heated argument, Jason and Claire found themselves in a raw and passionate encounter, a moment of physical connection that felt as if it could heal the rift between them. But as Claire lay there afterward, the moment felt hollow. She realized the intimacy they had just shared was only a temporary fix, a fleeting moment to quiet the emotional turmoil that had been growing between them. The desire for affection, for touch, had been a mask for something much deeper. It wasn't love that was missing, it was self-worth. The turning point, the complexity of intimacy. As the emotional distance between Claire and Jason grew, Emma found herself caught in a web of her own making. She had always prided herself on her emotional independence. She had always told herself that love, true love, was something fleeting, not something that could be pinned down or relied upon. But when Jason began to share more of his thoughts with her, his doubts, his frustrations with Claire, Emma began to feel something shift within her. It wasn't just sympathy, it was something deeper. In the secret moments when the lines between friendship and desire blurred, Emma and Jason shared a brief, intoxicating affair. It was nothing but an escape, a temporary reprieve from the chaos they were all living in. Emma, too, was seeking something: validation, affection, the warmth of being seen. But neither Emma nor Jason truly understood that what they were seeking wasn't the connection they craved. It was the ego's need for affirmation. Claire, meanwhile, noticed the shift. Her fears became reality as she began to sense the change in their interactions. It wasn't just a physical distance, but an emotional one. The depth of their intimacy had transformed into a dance of need and validation, with each of them relying on the other to feel whole. Buddhist wisdom, the path of non-attachment. At this crossroads, the teachings of Buddhism offer a way out. The Buddha taught that attachment, whether to people, objects, or even our own desires, is the root of suffering. When we attach ourselves too firmly to something or someone, we begin to shape our happiness around that attachment. We create expectations, and when those expectations are unmet, we suffer. Claire's dependence on Jason, Emma's attachment to Jason, and even Jason's need to please both women, these were all forms of attachment, forms of clinging that only led to pain. The key to freeing themselves from this suffering was non-attachment. Non-attachment doesn't mean that we stop loving or caring about others. It simply means that we let go of the need for validation from them. It's about understanding that true intimacy arises from a place of freedom, where both parties are free to be themselves without the pressure of fulfilling each other's emotional needs. Practical solutions. 3 ways to foster true intimacy without dependency. If Claire, Jason, and Emma had embraced these practices, their relationships might have taken a different turn. These techniques offer a way to transform dependency into authentic connection, fostering intimacy without the weight of attachment. 1. Cultivate self-love and self-awareness. 2. Before Claire could begin to heal her relationship with Jason, she had to first heal her relationship with herself. It wasn't about needing Jason's approval, but about recognizing her own worth. Self-love is the foundation of healthy intimacy. By understanding her own needs, Claire could learn to ask for affection without depending on it for her sense of self-worth. Similarly, Jason needed to recognize that his value wasn't tied to being the provider of constant reassurance. Embrace emotional independence. 3. Emotional independence doesn't mean closing yourself off from others. It means having the strength to express your feelings without relying on others to fix or validate them. Claire had to learn that her happiness didn't depend on Jason's constant attention. Likewise, Jason had to learn that his emotional needs didn't have to be met by Claire's love alone. By embracing emotional independence, both Claire and Jason could offer their love freely, without clinging to the other for emotional survival. Practice loving kindness without expectation. Buddhism teaches the practice of metta-loving kindness. This practice is about offering unconditional love and compassion to others without expecting anything in return. By practicing metta, Claire, Jason, and Emma could learn to love each other without attachment. This doesn't mean abandoning the relationship, but rather offering love from a place of inner peace, where the need for validation is released. Resolution. Embracing true intimacy. After a period of deep reflection and growth, Claire began to understand that true intimacy wasn't about clinging to Jason for reassurance or validation. It was about sharing her thoughts, her fears, and her love freely, without needing him to constantly affirm her. Jason, too, began to understand that his love for Claire didn't have to be a constant source of validation for her. Instead, they learned to communicate more openly, giving space for their emotional needs to coexist without overwhelming each other. Emma, too, faced her own challenges. She recognized that her feelings for Jason had been rooted in her own insecurities and fears of being alone. By embracing non-attachment, she was able to release her need for Jason's affection, allowing herself to heal and grow. Through mindfulness, self-awareness, and loving kindness, their relationships evolved. Claire and Jason, no longer weighed down by dependency, were able to embrace a new, more balanced form of love, one that didn't require constant validation, but was instead rooted in mutual respect and understanding. The relationships between Claire, Jason, and Emma were never perfect. But through the practice of non-attachment, they learned that true intimacy wasn't about possessing one another. It was about being free to love, to grow, and to evolve together. And that, in its truest form, is what brought them the deepest connection of all. If this story touched a hidden chord within you, share it. It might be the spark someone needs. Subscribe for more tales where the everyday meets the eternal. And know this, it's often through our fractures that light pours in.